Okay, so my name is Kate Dahl, and I'm a career consultant for internationals in Denmark, and I teach internationals how to get their dream job in Denmark in the Danish cultural context without losing themselves in the process. So that's what I do. I think the biggest challenge that internationals face is how to communicate their value in the Danish cultural context if their Danish is limited. Because you have a lot of positions that are in Danish that a lot of internationals are qualified for, but you need to be or they expect you to be fluent in Danish, right? And then you have also positions where the job ad is in English, or maybe Danish is a qualification, etc. But a lot of these positions, a lot of internationals can fill, but it's about how to overcome this barrier. And so there are different ways to overcome it. So one, it's about, you could learn the Danish language, that's true, or you can learn how to communicate their values so then they're able to overlook that skill that your Danish is limited, so that then they look at you and say, oh yeah, this person can actually give these skills and competences, so I'm willing to overlook that skill. And that happened to me quite a few times in Denmark as well, where I've applied for positions where the job ad, or even for my own clients, where the job ad was completely in Danish. They were able to still provide their value and show that value, and they were to overcome that barrier because they were able to tell about their value. So I think that's the biggest hurdle that a lot of internationals face, is to overcome that barrier, and also how to communicate that value in the Danish language context. We're not talking Danish language, but within the Danish cultural language. Spouses and getting a job is that it is totally possible. It just also, you have, it's really hard to just generalize, because it also depends on your education, your background, etc. But even if, like, let's say we talked earlier about IT, and it's a lot easier for those who are even in IT or within engineering to get jobs in Denmark. But I have seen a lot of spouses who fit the IT or engineering profile, and they're a spouse, and they still have the hardest time in getting a job. Why is that? Because they don't know how to communicate in the Danish cultural context, and they need to learn how to do things differently. Because remember, maybe they haven't even been to another country before. Maybe this is the first country that they've been to, so they've done things previously how it was home, but they don't know how to do things in Denmark. So it might be a little bit easier for you as a spouse, or it might be harder. It might depend. So it's about, you have to put in the work. I think it's like, no matter what your background is, you still have to put in work into it, and doing the research, or learning how to communicate in their value in the Danish cultural context. So it's just about learning how to do that, essentially. Yeah.
And do you think accent can be an issue in today's working environment?
You've given me a really difficult cut. Now this is something I need to talk about with my own personal story. When I first came to Germany, and I like to make the joke that my original accent sounds like Janice from Friends. It really did, but no one could understand me in Germany, like no one, because I had this thick Janice Friends accent, right? So instead of going like this and talking like this with Janice, I learned to not be nasally and not talk with my nose. So I learned to take my nose and then talk with my voice and talk normally. So there are some things that you can learn how to enunciate. And also I am a native English speaker. So being a native English speaker, I tend to talk very quickly. So when I became a freelance English teacher in Germany as well, I worked for 4.5 years, teaching children and adults English. I learned how to give presentations slower. I learned how to talk slower. I learned how to enunciate. And there's a difference, you don't want to sound slow like you're stupid. Nothing like that. But you just have to learn how to pace yourself. I honestly think having an accent is part of you. And I know in Denmark, they very much focus on having that Danish accent. And I understand that that's important, but having an accent is also about who you are. Like, I mean, I'm always going
Exactly.
to have an American accent when I speak Danish. But what I try to do when I speak Danish is that I try to make it understandable as best I can, but don't punish yourself and say that it's because of your accent that I can't be understood or that I can't get a job. You still have to be you. An accent is part of you. Of course, it's about making yourself understandable, but I don't think you should be shamed for getting and sounding more like British or American or Danish or whatever. You just do the best you can with it so that you're understood. And then just be proud of yourself for that. So that would be my advice. Yeah, so to find opportunities, it's about looking for the right places, but it also depends on your field. So for example, if you are a teacher and you have a background as a teacher, let's say in high school, then maybe you need to use a different portal, like there's a gymnasium portal. I can't remember the name, but there is literally a portal for those who want to teach high school. So you can look into that portal and see if that's for you. So if it's IT and engineering, I would recommend like work in Denmark. The biggest or general one is jobindex.dk, but there's also one what's called jobbank.dk as well that you can also look into. But also bear in mind that when you're looking, that to not underestimate LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is huge in Denmark. More than 60% of the Danish population have a LinkedIn profile. So make sure that it's like, yeah, so you look at the different portals and see if there's any specialized portals as well. Another tip I would give is in a lot of job ads that you'll see it's quite common that you have the hiring manager with like a telephone number and email. Learn how to contact Danish companies for the job ad. And that's really important. And that's what I also teach more in depth with my workshop. But the first tip I would just say is don't be afraid to take initiative, because in Danish culture, it's very, very important to show that you're proactive. So take proactive, try it yourself, and see what happens. Otherwise, you can come to me to learn more about the communication process, but I would just say try it yourself and then see what happens, because this is just so important and so crucial as a step to do, so that then your application is pulled from the pile and then that they'll take a look more closely. This is just important to do. Make sure you have a really good LinkedIn profile. Make sure that the keywords are in, that it looks good, because it is essentially the modern day business card. And a lot of people don't know that everyone has their own QR code. So anyone that wants to learn about new features, you can go to linkedin.com/help. And everyone has their own QR code. So it's really important. That is like your modern business card. So when you have your LinkedIn profile that's very sharp, and especially using that, you can use that to not only apply for jobs, like say, for example, the Easy Apply. It's also your common way to network. Networking is so important. Don't underestimate it. And a lot of people talk about like going to events and things like this. Yeah, it's important, but I think it's really important to be very picky with what events you go to, because they should be with people relevant in your field. Because I think a lot of times when you're unemployed, you go to events with other people who are unemployed. And not that you can't get a job that way, but I think it's really important to find where that is. So for example, if you're let's say a spouse and your background at home is within HR, right? And then look for events within HR to go to. There are like a ton of them. Or if your background's in tech, there's a ton of events to go to. You know, do the research on that with Google, LinkedIn, you know, wherever, right? But I really firmly believe in the idea of looking for specialized people, like look for people, like be specific who you want to go to and talk to, and don't be afraid to go to the hiring managers. Like it's okay to go to the CEO. Maybe it might be hard to get the CEO of Novo Nordisk, for example, but my point is like don't be afraid to like contact people for coffee meetings. You know, I also offer that as a session as well, but I would just say you need to have your LinkedIn profile that's very good, and you also to not be afraid to take initiative to like network and build that network. Like it takes time, and it's not like networking is not going to get you a job like this, but even those who are employed in Denmark, keep networking. Keep doing it to ensure your job in Denmark, that you can keep getting a job in Denmark in the long run. Because I see this all the time. Those who are employed, they're like, okay, I got a job, I'm done, I can relax. No, there's no such thing as relaxing. You just need to keep networking.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Since you touched upon LinkedIn, I have another question that
Yeah,
follows up.
go for it.
If someone reaches out to you on
Yeah.
your platform, do you offer specific training to these LinkedIn profile setups and stuff? I would like you to explain about what you do with Career Denmark.
Okay, stop. So what I do at Career Market is two things. I work with organizations such as Akademische A-Kasse and Dansk Magisterforening, and I work with municipalities, various municipalities in Denmark, etc., so that I offer events, so that it's free for internationals to do training. So you're always, if you're not able to, I understand that being unemployed, you might not have the funds to be able to get the help that you need. So that's why I offer these events as well, so that then internationals have this access, and I work with these organizations. So you can just simply follow my Facebook page, Career Denmark. Make sure it's the Career Denmark with 12,000 followers and not the very few, because there's quite a few copycat. And that's another tip I would just give, since we're here, is to be aware of these scammers. I could send you the blog on that as well, but there's a lot of scammers, and Facebook, in my opinion, is not the greatest place to look for work, because they're vague, they're not clear, they try to get your information in banking inside, and so they steal people's money who are unemployed, and this happens quite often. And I know that being unemployed, you're vulnerable, and so just be aware, and like when you're following pages, to know that they're like the right pages and not like the copycat scammers. So you can follow me on my Facebook page on Career Denmark for events, or on my LinkedIn page on Career Denmark, or on my profile for these free events. And if you're an organization who's interested, you're welcome to contact me, so that then I can offer help to internationals as well, and to give my advice and tips and tricks, etc. And the other thing that I offer is one-on-one consultation. I'm not a coach. I give practical advice on how to job search in the Danish cultural context without losing yourself in the process. But basically, I offer one-on-one consultations on different job search strategies, and I also offer or give events. And you're welcome to, whether you want to do one-on-one consultation or wait for the events, you're welcome to do either one. So, yeah.